And welcome back to In Focus. November 16th through the 24th is actually Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. Not having access to food or a place to stay impacts many we might not expect it to, and that includes college students. In fact, according to a study conducted by the American Educational Research Association, roughly half of all college students are food insecure, and at least a third of two-year students are housing insecure. Well, SUNY has assembled a task force to address these needs here in New York, and joining us now to talk about these efforts, SUNY's Provost of Student Affairs, John Graham. Provost, a pleasure to have you today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and it's really good to be here at a good time.
And, you know, an important topic, especially we're talking about Thanksgiving coming up, meals, and people getting around the table enjoying a healthy meal, but it's shocking, that statistic I just brought up. Upwards of 50% of college students might be food insecure. Your task force, they're trying to address this.
Well, let me tell you, we are we're in a really good place right now because the governor sort of kind of edged us a little bit. He gave us a mandate, and that mandate was that no child would go hungry, and that was between SUNY and CUNY. We put together a task force under the authority of the Chancellor and the Board of Trustees and worked assiduously for 18 months with faculty, staff, and students to address food insecurity. And we were very fortunate. Our findings really coalesce with the national statistics. So we're sort of in that same space. But what makes us special is that SUNY didn't admire the problem. We began to work very, very rigorously and working with our campuses to address student hunger on our campuses, and we were quite successful.
That's great news there, especially for these kids. As I understand it, you surveyed about 11,000 students from March to May, and kind of what did you find?
Well, we found that, about 45 to about 54% of our students really were having a hard time with studying in some cases because they didn't have enough food or they didn't have enough money to purchase food.
Okay.
But our campuses were very, very entrepreneurial, and that's one thing our chancellor has really been asking us to do at all levels. And let me just share some things with you. So, an example, SUNY Geneseo, as just one example, they have a food for fines program. So when students when they get parking tickets and things like that, they can actually they can pay that off with food.
Wow.
At the pantry. So right now,
encouraging
charity, and now 78% of our campuses have on-campus food pantries. 78%, and 22% are in strategic partnerships in their communities, working with food banks and other emergency food assistance providers. It's really fantastic work.
That is fantastic. Now, it's so important that you brought up that these students, you know, they're kind of being encouraged to give through charity, and it goes a long way because part of your study found, too, that a lot of SUNY students didn't actually know that they had access to a lot of these avenues for food, right?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. So we were of the assumption that, you know, because we put these interventions in place, that everybody would sort of know about it. But we're still grappling with this whole phenomena around stigma. And our campus leaders and our campus coordinators at the pantries are aware of it. So what we've asked them to do, and what they've already begun to do, is really to do a better job of sort of advertising and sharing that message. And many of them work very comfortably with student government organizations and student government associations. And they're really helping to get the word out in very strategic ways. And so academic advisors are helping. Educational opportunity program coordinators are helping, and so we sort of have this team approach now of broadcasting the good news about the pantries being on the campus to help students.
And in addition to the pantries, you talk maybe about some of that stigma. Some of these students want to feel like they are actually buying their food, or they want their friends to think they're buying the food too. So you've come up with alternative payment programs and things of that nature.
Yeah,
right?
We work very comfortably with our auxiliary services corporations, and we have quite a few in the system, but we've been very, very strategic in that regard because we've had our students working with the auxiliary service companies create something called Swipe It Forward. And that's just one example at SUNY Delhi where students can donate unused meals to students, and they can do it in a very anonymous way, and they can go to their dean of students or their vice president for student affairs, get that swipe card, and they can go to the dining hall just like everyone else, and no one knows.
It's such a wonderful thing, John, because I could even speak from experience too. I would, you know, load up on the unlimited plan, and I would end up at the end of the semester, I don't know what to do with this. I wish I could give it away. That's phenomenal.
We're doing a great job. I got to tell you, we really owe a lot of thanks to our campus leaders. Our campus leaders, our provosts, our administrators, they're really, really helping in this space. But I got to give a lot of credit to also our auxiliary service corporations because we're in partnership with Chartwell's, Sodexo, Aramark, and other large companies, as well as smaller companies. And they begin to come to the table. And quite frankly, had they not worked with us on the task force, we would be less successful than we are.
You know, you said you didn't just admire the results, you went and dealt with them. I know that this task force isn't resting on its laurels. I mean, what other things you're looking to do as you try to advance this initiative?
Another thing that our chancellor has been pushing for is partnerships, and all of us agree with her wholeheartedly. So we have the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance. They've got great leadership there. We work very comfortably with a colleague named Lisa Irvin. And then I have another colleague that we work with very comfortably in Hunger Solutions, and Linda Bopp. And between the two of them, they sort of helped us really come up with a strategy to reach out to our students through the NOAP coordinators. These are the Nutrition Outreach Education Program. And so now they have access to our campuses. They are in high traffic areas with their coordinators, working with our students and trying to help them navigate the SNAP application, because many of our students are emancipated from their families in some cases, and this will give them a chance to have some food assistance for themselves and their family beyond the pantry on the campus.
You know, John, very quickly wrapping up here, we have about less than a minute left. The key thing that we find with all of this, we talk about all these numbers, but really in college it boils down to opportunities to and grades. And you have found too in your study that if you don't have access to a good meal, if you're not nutrified, your grades are going to suffer.
You're right. You're spot on. So we're concerned about student success. We cannot really talk about student success unless we address the issue of food insecurity. And we are in the right place at the right time with the extraordinary task force. And so our work is looking beyond what we've done, and we've asked each campus to sort of look at their own data set and begin to make sure that our interventions are sustainable for the long term.
Well, John Graham, Provost of SUNY Student Affairs, a pleasure.
Thank you
for
so
your
very
insights.
much for the opportunity.
Our pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Yep.
All right, from feeding New York students to feeding the community at large. Up next, we're going to be joined by an organization that has been feeding thousands on Thanksgiving for the past 50 years. We have more on that when In Focus returns in less than 2 minutes.
How was it?